Biz Buzz, 2 till 3:30 every weekday on Marlow FM 97.5.
And a very good afternoon to you and welcome to Biz Buzz. This is Dermot Fitzpatrick, together with my co-hosts Wisdom de Costa and Malcolm Parr, and we're with you for the next a little bit under 90 minutes until 3:30 this afternoon. Good afternoon, gentlemen, and welcome to the studio again.
Good afternoon.
Here we are.
Good afternoon.
Good to be
the
back.
Three Musketeers.
Yep, absolutely.
So which one of this is Porthos then?
I'm not going to go into that. I'm not going. So the best looking one is D'Artagnan.
So that'd be you then, Dermot.
So what's been happening in your lives? Malcolm, what's been happening in the life of Malcolm Parr these last 2 weeks?
Well, this is my first summer in Marlow, and I'm quite excited about all the things going on all the time. You walk down the high street and there's either cyclists or runners or whatever, you name it. And I was out cleaning the boat a couple of days ago and looking really scruffy. Then these 10 really smart boats turned up. There was a mayor with his chains on. There was a swan upper with his medals on.
A what upper?
Yeah, then what they were
upper?
doing, they were swan upping. I know.
I'm not going there.
That's not, no, don't go there. This poor swan was surrounded by 8 or 9 boats, all in their finest livery, and was ringed, and its kids were ringed as well. And off they went quite happily later on. And this apparently happens every year. The swan upping goes on.
So this is swan upping for the layman, the man in the back, the person on the back of the bus is.
No.
It's counting the Queen's.
Counting the Queen's processions, yes, so the swans, and they all belong to the Queen, and a swan upper is appointed to care for them and register them and see their growth and see what their habitat and make sure they're safe.
Excellent. And Wisdom, you were going to say something about swan uppers.
No, I was just going to ask, did the mayor have a life jacket on or a buoyancy aid? I expect with those chains he'd been straight to the bottom.
I almost fell in with my bucket and spade watching them, but yeah, they all seemed okay. They seemed sober as well. It seemed a bit boring, actually.
Was that unusual for the mayor in this area?
I'm not answering that. I have no idea.
Now, Wisdom, let's not get political at this so early in the programme. And what about you, Wisdom? What's been happening over in your part of the world, in Windsor?
I've been amazed. I've got some new glasses. I've been putting off getting glasses for a long time, and so we got some new. And prescriptions slightly changed, and of course it's nice and sunny. And I've got some lovely polarized lenses. So I'm driving around with them, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I can see everything. Too much information.
It works both ways.
It does. Yes.
I've been taking the mirrors down.
Yeah, he does a bit of mirror kissing, doesn't he?
He does. I know. I didn't tell you about that.
Well, the programme this afternoon, we're going to the edge, aren't we? We've got this. We're going to do a review of the book of Jeffrey Rifkin's.
Jeremy Rifkin.
Jeremy Rifkin's. Get the name even right. So the zero marginal cost society.
Correct. Yes.
The Internet of Things, collaborative commons, and the eclipse of capitalism.
Wow. I'm impressed.
Isn't that the longest title in the world?
You haven't read my book, or rather, you have read my book, which is almost as long the title.
So this is about the future of things to come that is actually happening already. We're going to be talking about breaking it down into what actually each of those aspects in the title mean.
Yeah, I think this is a very profound book that has implications, or rather, it's reflecting what's happening in society, and there is a fundamental paradigm shift in the economic models. Which is happening now, which will affect all of us, particularly our children. So it is complicated, but it's so important and profound that I think we're going to be looking at this over 2 or 3 shows. And as always, we're always looking to add value to you listeners. So we'll come up with some positive ideas and ways that you can get involved, and this can benefit you. You can take advantage rather than be a victim. Be a winner.
What I love about this is the awareness that this is not only is it happening, it's almost like something that's happening in the background. It's quietly there. We're not even noticing, and we're participating in the changes. And as I understand it from Jeremy
Rifkin.
I want to call him Jeffrey. Jeremy Rifkin.
As long as it's not Malcolm.
It's not. Well, there is. We have one Malcolm already. Is that kind of this change that is happening, which will change the society we live in. It will change the way we work. It will change the way we communicate with each other, we live together with each other, and it could, as it says in the book, it actually could change the economic system in the world, changed a paradigm of moving to something that's other than capitalism.
I think what he's pointing out isn't that what he's saying will change the system, but rather we have a system which is based on a number of key pillars, and those pillars of the current economic system, which has existed for the last 200-300 years, are changing, which means that a new economic system is developing. So it isn't saying it will happen. He's saying, look, guys, it's happening now.
It's happening. And what I love about these things is tracing what I call the story. And in listening to one of the talks he's given, it goes back to an incident in 1999 where two brothers, the Fanning brothers, and one of their friends in a university got together and created a bit of software.
Yep.
And that software was to share files, so share audio files together with their fellow students.
Correct.
What was that called? It was I will find out what the name of it was. It didn't last very long because the authorities obviously cottoned on to it, and it affected the music industry. But what they created has become now what we now know as Spotify and all these file sharing software pieces that have been created. Yep. And it implemented a change that changed the nature of the record industry, the recording industry. And so that happened in 1999. So these kind of changes that are there are actually have been rolling towards us, and they're already actually in the system. We're already using them, and as we'll discover when we start to explore it further, are going to be even what's the word? Extrapolated, or whatever the big word is. That
exponential growth.
Exponential growth. Thank you. Over the next 20 years, that will actually change the way that we think of things and the way we use technology.
Yeah, I mean. Sorry, Jeremy, I did it myself.
I don't feel so bad now.
Jeremy,
I know the title of his book, but not his own name.
So Jeremy talks about the way in which these three matrices, which are the energy matrix, communication matrix, and the logistic matrix.
So slow that one down.
So the energy matrix, the logistics matrix, and the communications matrix.
Okay.
He talks about how this is affecting society from an economic point of view. But in reality, as we heard with Georgios the last show, this is actually going to affect politics, it's going to affect education, it's going to affect social organisation. It's actually going to affect every area of our life. Let me give you one of the bold statements that Jeremy makes,
okay.
and then we'll unpack it later. So the capitalist era is passing, not quickly, but inevitably. A new economic paradigm, the collaborative commons, is rising up in its wake that will transform our life.
And I like to, for me, I kind of say, well, where am I seeing that this change that's happening? So yesterday I was in a supermarket in the high street here in Marlow, and I went to self-checkout. Yep. So took it off the shelf, self-checkout, and paid for it with my credit card, and left. And so I know now that that machine that I was using is connected to a warehouse somewhere that has registered that the tin of beans that I bought, the shop needs another one. And so that would be automatically coming down in my mind, a conveyor belt into a box somewhere, and within the next 24 hours, that product will be replaced into that store without actually any humans being involved in it at all.
And it can be even more sophisticated than that, because if the shop you went to has a club card, then your purchase and the nature of your purchases are matched with you, and then later on they will send you specific offers based on your range of purchases, which might look to give you more value or even get more profit for themselves by giving you perhaps an upmarket version of what you bought. And of course, you buy the best always. I understand that.
Well, it was the top range, of course. And what's interesting is we kind of noticed that coming in, and there was a little bit of irritation. We're now getting used to that, and eventually there will be no checkout aisles probably at all. There will be just machines to check out with. Yeah. And of course, the employees that used to be in that store, their work is no longer. Their efforts are no longer needed.
It's interesting, actually, because a friend of mine works in a doctor's surgery, and I've tried it myself. I walked in, and you have a screen. You put down your date of birth, and you put your name down, and it says, fine, you're registered. Go and sit down, shut up, we'll let you know when you're ready. But you analyse, you look at the people coming in, and it's not just the older people, it's the younger people as well. 80%, maybe more, go straight to the desk. Say, hi, I'm so-and-so, I've got an appointment at 2:30, and oh, fine, hello, Mr. Smith. Yes, do sit down. How are you? All right. And that personal contact has made them relaxed. They feel part of the system. They're happy to wait, and the difference is huge.
But you reminded me actually when you said sit down, shut up. You know,
Oh, sorry.
I was in a hospital yesterday for a checkup, and I was trying to read the book, to Marginal Society, be ready for today. And there was somebody who was being very antisocial, and they were listening to a video on Facebook in the hospital, in the waiting room. And I looked
without headphones.
Without headphones, and I looked up to expect to see somebody of a certain age. Let's not get ageist. And it was somebody of a certain age. She was in her 70s.
Bless her. That's okay then.
That's okay. Hope for me in 30 years.
And if you've just joined us, you're listening to BizBuzz on Marlow FM 97.5, and we're reviewing Jeremy Rifkin's book, The Zero Marginal Cost Society, the Internet of Things, the Collaborative Commons, and the Eclipse of Capitalism. And if you're listening and you'd like to join in the conversation or ask a question, which hopefully we will be able to answer, or make a comment of some kind, you can phone us in on 01628 488 975. That's 01628 488 975. If you want to text us, you can do that on 07000 975 975. That's so I'll repeat that again. It's 07900 975 975. And if you want to send us in an email, you can do that to studio@marlowfm.co.uk. Let's listen to some Bob Dylan with The Times They Are A-Changing. That was Bob Dylan with The Times They Are A-Changing, and indeed they are a-changing. Somebody said the only thing constant in life is change. And that's certainly what's happening now. Is I think the change is speeding up. That's where we all find it so difficult sometimes just to keep up with what's happening. 24-hour news and texting and Facebooking. But Wisdom, you were talking there during the break about the background to this. Just take us back to kind of the beginning, the first revolution. What was the first revolution, if this is being the third one?
Yeah, if I can say to listeners, if some of these things seem a little bit complicated, please go to Marlow FM website and listen again. So you can listen to these at your leisure and try and unpack the things. So Jeremy Rifkin talks about the transitions from a number of different economic systems which by necessity evolved. So he went through the feudal commons, the enclosure movement and the rise of the market economy, the first industrial revolution, the second industrial revolution, and then by example, then moving on to what we're explaining or experiencing now, which is the third industrial revolution. And the reason I think it's important to get this in your mind is that when you see these different paradigms or these different ways in which things were done in the past in a new light, then you understand why what's about to happen is inevitable. It's unavoidable, and it's going to hit us with a rush. So the key for Jeremy is he looked back over time, and he looked at things through the lens of what he calls a technology platform. Now, he looked at the energy available at the time, the communication systems available at the time, and the logistics systems infrastructure available at the time. Now, each of these three things contribute to not just business life and the way in which surpluses are traded or people benefit, but also to social organisation and, by implication, governance. So when we look at the feudal commons, in that time, the peasants had tenure over the land, and they pay a rent consisting of the produce they would harvest from the land. So the key energy there was obviously serfs, people, oxen, horses, and wood for making heat. Communication was oral, and there were no roads, so everything was local. Especially with the communication system, if everything was oral, you could only speak from one person to another. So everything was produced for use locally, and any surpluses were traded at local fairs. Now, the interesting thing here is that nobody owned the land. There's a complex hierarchy of passing down from the king to the nobles to the individuals, where everybody had rights over the land, but nobody actually owned it.
So the king owned it all, I presume?
I think when you look at the actual historians, they said no, even in that he could allocate land,
but he didn't
actually own it.
Okay.
Then we moved on to the enclosure movement, which historians say it was the revolt of the rich against the poor, where what happened was that the richer people took the land and said, right, we're going to take rights over it and enclose it, say this is ours. And with that comes the print revolution then was starting to kick in. And the reason that the print, which is a communication medium, was important is that that gave them the ability to codify things, to write things down and create laws. And those laws then could be enforced by policing of some sort. So in this era of the enclosure movement, you saw the rise of the police force, Robert Peel and so forth. So you start to see things start to pull together to support whoever's in power at the time. So water was the key energy force here, not people. So people used water mills, and that meant a 20-fold increase in productivity. Wind was also an important thing, using windmills and so forth. That gave a level of independence to the cities, which were now starting to actually grow, towns and cities. And the reason the towns and cities were growing was that when the rich people at the time enclosed the land and said, great, this is ours, we're taking ownership of it, it meant that all those peasant farmers had nowhere to live. It was a dire time for these guys. So they congregated towards cities where they thought they could get some sort of economic benefit. What happened in the cities was that the trades and guilds started to develop, and at the same time as trade became a little bit more, I suppose, common between cities through canals and waterways and people sailing around the world. This is when sort of the rise of the British Empire and Portuguese Empire, you started to get international trade. So then with the water came mills. So the cotton industry and the textile industry was actually the first industry to start to look at this whole idea of capitalism, where you needed a lot of money to produce a mill and the infrastructure that went with the mill, and then you needed a return on that investment. So at this time, any surpluses that were generated and were starting to be generated by the cotton mills, by enclosing land, so people would make big farms, landowners, they would be traded in markets and transported for sale because water barge transport was available then. So we talked about the development of a legal system because of print, because of the printing press was then in force. And at that time, we also then talked about trade overseas. So all of a sudden, you've suddenly got trade coming in. Now, the merchants then develop things even further. What happens next is coal power and steam power and the locomotive, and the telegraph. So these all start to happen around about the 18th century. And all of a sudden, coal power now increases productivity by another factor of 10. You don't need people. You use coal and steam to produce automated machines. And this was in the middle of the first industrial revolution. Locomotives and trains powered by steam, powered by coal, on infrastructure train tracks, then are able to take your goods faster to further away. And so you open up markets where you can sell your products. But of course, rail infrastructure and the mills, as I said, need a lot of investment. So the way people got around that, the mill owners is by centralising power, by taking away rights from individual workers and saying, great, you're now going to become an employee. Before you were a tradesman and you had your own tools and you could arrange and negotiate prices which gave you a living wage. Can you hear some reflections there in today's society? But now you're going to be an employee. We're taking away your tools. We're going to provide them. So now you work for us. And we're going to also take away the living wage aspect of it and give you what we think you should have. So we're going to take more of the profitability that comes from selling the goods that you've produced or been involved in producing. So with the railroad actually came the birth of modern capitalism. So with modern capitalism, railroads, building railroads would cost huge amounts of money by today's standards across the country, and producing rail structures in train sort of. What's the expression?
I don't know.
Okay, basically running a train system, whilst it enabled business to boom because you were reaching new markets and new areas which hadn't been tapped, the complexities of it meant huge amounts of capital had to be invested. And the only way you could control such a large, disparate structure was then by centralising power and control. So all of a sudden you've got coordinated control, central management, codified policies, segregation of duties, and very strong control using the telegraph.
And then we had airlines.
Then we move on
Car.
No, we haven't got there yet. We're about to go to cars now. So the second industrial revolution came about with the discovery of oil.
We're going to take a break there and play a piece of music, and we're going to come back to the second industrial revolution after we play The Only Way Is Up. That was Yaz with The Only Way Is Up. And we're hoping that in this discussion we're having this afternoon on the marginal cost society and the Internet of Things, the collaborative commons and the eclipse of capitalism, that although it's raising some issues that may be of concern for the future as to what's going to happen with this technology, with everything becoming automated, with robots producing everything, with even doctors and specialists and neurologists being replaced by machines. But maybe that we know that there are lots of other good positive aspects coming from this, and that's what we want to explore here in this afternoon as well. Wisdom, you were a wonderful job there describing to us how we moved from the different revolutions, from the agricultural right into steam and trains and coal. We were moving into the next one, which was, I think, was it cars? Cars and planes?
The next industrial revolution was the second one, which began in the 19th century with the discovery of oil. So going back to those three technology platforms, so we talked originally about coal power. Now you have oil power, and oil and coal also then creating electricity. So electricity then enables the telephone and the telephone network to be created, which allows information and control to be very quick and almost instantaneous, but by the telephone. So these big organisations can then send information directly and control and check. And you need that sort of level of controlling and checking because some of the investments here, again, we're talking about capitalism, are very high in the oil industry. And even the creation of a telephone network, massive amount of initial infrastructure costs, so your sunk cost, to actually produce these things. And then we've got the development of the internal combustion engine and the cars and the road networks. And again, road networks opened up the markets across a continent. So these new power sources, oil, and the new communication, immediacy of telephone, and the new logistics, basically the internal combustion engine, cars, lorries, trucking their way around the country on the new roads that were created, now meant that the only way you could justify managing those huge investments was, again, by centralizing power, creating bigger corporations, vertically integrated corporations, which would rely on a very strong chain of command. So you have the rise of people like Exxon, of BP, of Shell. You have the rise, as a result of that, with a large amount of capital required, of the big banks like JP Morgan, Chase, Merrill Lynch, and between them, these corporations controlled around about 60% of much of the world market. So
we can see where this is heading.
Absolutely. Now, all of these things contribute towards productivity as well. And so we're seeing this increase in productivity, a driving down of costs where you're starting to get more automated machinery. And lighting obviously then helped factories be open longer and longer and longer. What's the next revolution? What's happening in the energy matrix now? What's happening is that oil, which is expensive, is now we're coming to the end of its life. So the costs of actually generating oil generally are very, very high. What it's being replaced by is more renewable energy, so wind, solar. Those are the two key ones. 5-10 years ago, it seemed ridiculous that we could generate energy efficiently, yet now Moore's Law is seeing a doubling of productivity and efficiency in each of these fields. So within 10-20 years, wind electricity could be generated by you. Solar power could be generated by you, and it's at 40% efficiency, which means that the cost of energy would drop by half.
And what he was saying was, I understand, is that in Germany, where he's working with Angela Merkel and the German government, that almost 35% of the energy that's needed in Germany is green energy produced by putting solar panels on tops of millions and millions of buildings within Germany. And I think by 2020, it will be 40-50% of the energy produced will be green energy.
There was a rate, so in 88 minutes, the sun generates enough energy or beamed onto the Earth, just onto the Earth, to power the world for a year. So if we can improve our efficiency of generating and harvesting that energy, then actually we have a potentially limitless source of power.
It's amazing, isn't it? We've gone into the ground to suck up oil and coal from the ground and put a lot of effort and money into that kind of technology. And it's only now we're beginning to realize that we could have captured the energy from the sun.
I think we've always realized it, but the technology wasn't there to harvest efficiently. I think the efficiency rate is about 2%, but that should rise to about 40%, and we're seeing a doubling in the efficiency of photovoltaic cells, which means it becomes possible for us to generate our own electricity. So you and I can stick solar panels on our roofs, and the more efficient solar panels that you're getting nowadays would mean that you generate all your own electricity. So it's free. And you have enough to sell or to provide to your local community in these new microgrids that could develop.
And so just coming back to the book, the first, it's in the title of the book, The Zero Marginal Cost Society. So marginal cost is the cost, that what it costs to produce a product, one more product more than the cost of the fixed assets.
Yeah, and what you're seeing is that some of these networks, so for example, we talked about the energy infrastructure network, and also then you've got the internet network, which is facilitating communications at a massive rate. When you combine that with 2 billion mobile smartphones with more computing power than sending the whole Apollo program, and also now logistics where things are done locally. What we're then saying is that once those costs are paid for, the cost of producing something new is very, very small.
And we're benefiting from that because of the cost of producing clothes or producing food. We think it's being third world countries, but in actual fact, it's also an improvement in the technology of manufacture and distribution. And we're actually enjoying these low costs. We're not actually noticing or asking the question, first of all, how can this be produced so cheaply? But also the future consequences is as that more technology comes in and less people are needed to produce the products, then there will be work as we know it today will become, as he describes it, almost obsolete.
I think part of what you say is right, that we're moving to a model of abundance. In the past, we looked at scarcity, and scarcity drove prices up, whereas now if everybody can design their own courses and print their own products at home, then you don't need to go elsewhere to do things.
Everything is on the internet. You can become educated on the internet. You can download software free to do almost anything that you want.
But part of what he's talking about isn't about what you just described as the capitalist model, where you try and drive costs down to increase profit. So you squeeze your lower paid, you squeeze your producers, your farmers, your people overseas. That's not what I'm talking about in terms of what the big supermarkets are doing. What they're talking about is fundamentally different in saying, well, actually, we'll produce our own stuff and we'll share it. That's free.
And that's happening at the moment as well with people working collaboratively. I was thinking actually Marlow FM, our studio, is a collaborative commons, isn't it? It's a group of 90 people in a town creating a radio station.
And how much would that radio station would cost in commercial terms to put on air? Probably hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds. Yeah, you're right. We're giving our time and our skills and learning from each other.
And people are doing that across the world and connecting up, and it is having an impact on the music industry, where people are producing their own music, putting it out on Vimeo and YouTube, singing from their bedroom, and people are downloading it. Yeah. They're producing videos, they're producing blogs and ebooks, and in many cases distributing them for free.
Yeah, absolutely.
This revolution is already in our awareness, isn't it?
It's already happening, and it's going to invade more and more areas of our lives.
Time for some more music. I wanted to play this one. It's Stacey Kent with "The Best Is Yet to Come." We were so busy listening to that, the best of yet to come, and we didn't even notice its passing. If you just joined us, this is Dermot Fitzpatrick with you on BizBuzz this afternoon, and we've been exploring the Zero Marginal Cost Society, the book by Jeremy Rifkin, and talking about the various aspects of this book, that the implications of it for the future lives that we have, the civilization in the future, the kind of society that we're going to have, the kind of workplaces, if we have work, and the work that we're going to be doing. Wisdom, we were talking there about the different aspects of the marginal cost, and how a marginal cost, where actually businesses, in their effort to, as he describes it, in their effort to make money by using technology to reduce cost, improving productivity and effectiveness and efficiency, they brought the marginal cost, the cost of producing an item, down so low that his prophecy is that this would result in, there's so many things, so much abundance out there, that the major corporations as we know them today will actually not exist anymore.
He's pointing out that one of the inherent ironies of capitalism is that you have to drive down the cost of production and cost so that you make a greater level of profit. Whereas what the Internet of Things is now doing is it's making available some of the key capital items like intellectual property free. Anybody can get them. It's all available, people share it. So if you don't have that level of startup cost, then you can immediately start to produce stuff, as you've seen with people sharing music, as you've seen with now people producing their own online courses and selling them. So with the rise of 3D printers as well, people can then actually do a range of things. They can get all of the plans they need to make a printer themselves online. Some of the printers which they can buy actually can repair themselves by producing, they're made out of stuff which the printer produces itself. So it's almost like the replicator in Star Trek. And then all of the intellectual property, so the plans, you can get online, free. And people are actually doing that. They're producing a whole collaborative society, a makers society, where people can share stuff online, and that's driving down the cost of doing things.
Yeah, and it's just breaking in there. It's there's almost like this micro entrepreneurship, and it brings me to just having a break from Rifkin's book to looking at an entrepreneur that I know, a friend of mine, Linus Gorpe, and he's the founder of the Raw Chocolate Company. And he just happened to be on Dragon's Den recently, and he was staying with me over the weekend before last. And I wanted to interview him and find out what that was like. This is an indication of an entrepreneur, someone who he loves chocolate. He loved eating chocolate. Started to make chocolate for himself. The chocolate that he made, he started to share it with his friends. And this is again this new collaborative commons. It's sharing what we've got. His friends enjoyed it so much that they asked him if he would sell it, and he started a business. And the business is called the Raw Chocolate Company. And he was on Dragon's Den, and this is the interview I had with him about his experience on Dragon's Den.
Linus, congratulations on your performance on Dragon's Den. You must have been very pleased with the outcome.
Thank you very much. I was. I had a really good time. I was quite nervous, and the reason I did that was because I wanted to overcome my fear of standing in front of people.
So let me get this straight. As an entrepreneur running your business, you've been running this business for 9 years, and you suddenly put a challenge to yourself that you're going to apply to go on Dragon's Den to overcome your fear of public speaking.
That's right.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
I didn't need the money. It was just...
You didn't actually need the...
No, I didn't need the money. But I thought it might be useful to have one of the dragons on board, because they do have quite a few contacts.
Yes.
So, well, I was thinking about it for quite a while. Like, how would this change the energy of the company to have someone much more money-orientated in my business?
Mm-hmm.
And I did pros and cons, and I figured there's mainly pros to having a dragon investor on board.
Mm.
And therefore I decided to go on the program.
And so how do you go about that? You apply to be on the program?
Yeah, so
send a letter to someone?
That's right, yeah. Send a letter to BBC, Dragon's Den, saying I want to be part of the program, and they sent an application form with loads and loads and loads of questions. And once I passed the first lot of questions, then I had to come in for a pre-screening where I had to pitch to the producer on camera. So I did a pitch, I practiced my pitch at the BBC studios in London.
Mm-hmm.
And I was quite nervous for that, but it was really good to have my first. It was only 2 people behind the camera, and it took about 10 takes for me to get the right pitch out.
Did they help you with that?
They helped me with the pitch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
They did that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we see you walking up the stairs. So what was that like, walking up that stairs?
There are no stairs. There's a lift.
There's a lift.
So I walked into the lift and then out of the lift.
Okay.
And it's a very different experience from what it looks like on TV, and I can't reveal to you why.
Okay.
It's probably a film trick.
Okay. We will stay with the illusion.
Stay with the illusion.
And what was it like standing in front of the dragons?
I felt really empowered in myself. I had practiced and prepared. I'd watched many programs and I had studied my numbers really well, and I knew what they were going to ask for. So I felt very confident and nervous. Before I went on the program, I was doing a quite strong breathing meditation just outside the lift doors, where I was calling in all my Viking ancestors and breathing out all the little fears, little critters that might, talk in my head saying you're not good enough, and just talking all those out, breathing them all out.
Wow.
So in with all my ancestors.
With all of that, how could dragons withstand the force of all of that power?
Well, they couldn't.
So you went in and you had a figure in mind of what you were going to ask for, even though you say you didn't actually need it as a business. And you had a percentage of the shares of the company that you were prepared to.
That's right.
To give for that.
Yeah. So because I didn't need the money, I tried to figure out, what number do I actually ask for. So the obvious one that came to my mind was the first chocolate bar I ever created was a 72% dark chocolate. So I thought
72%?
72% dark.
Right.
So I chose £72,000 because that was the cacao content of my first chocolate bar.
And did they ask you why 72,000?
No, they didn't.
Oh, that would have been a great line.
I know.
Yeah. And so how did it go? So I know I've seen the program, but how did it go for you in terms of how you thought it might go?
It went the way I thought it might go. I thought they would all love me, and I think I charmed them. The trick was and is to always be authentic, to not try and know things I don't know. So when I didn't know something, I said I don't know.
Yes.
And it's quite simple. Just say what I know and say I don't know.
But you knew the numbers of your business.
I knew the numbers of my business. There was one thing I didn't get right, which was I didn't understand, or I don't know or I didn't know at that time what the gross profit means. What is it? I thought it was something else. Mm-hmm. So I gave them the wrong numbers, and they were quite confused. But Deborah managed to sort that out by asking me more detailed questions. So I'm very pleased.
And she was very excited, wasn't she? Yes.
She was very excited.
And she made the first offer.
She did, yeah. And when she'd made the offer, I thought, well, so I've got what I want, because I'd already set my limit as 10%. I wasn't going to give away more than 10%, whatever they offered.
So you were happy that she went in with?
Yeah, the first offer was already in my bag.
Right.
So anything else would be a bonus. Mm-hmm. So when they started fighting over me, it was just fun.
That must have been fun to watch them.
It was really fun.
Trying to outbid each other.
It was. Yeah, at one point I even walked away to leave them to their arguing.
It's usually the other way around.
It's usually the other way around, yeah.
The business person walks to the back and has a think about it.
That's right. So I went and put my hands on my ears and suggested they just decide amongst themselves, and then I'll come back.
And then you got an offer of what, 90,000 for 20%?
20% from Peter.
From Peter, yeah.
And
you said to him?
That was very cheeky.
Lovely.
And then he started to try and sell himself by saying why I should go for him, why he's worth 20%. And I'd already stopped listening because I wasn't going to go for 20%. 10% was my max. Yeah. So I just started stretching and making myself more comfortable. And that, I think, put Peter off a little bit. So he lost himself and asked, "You all right, Linus?" So yeah, I enjoyed that.
So that was cheeky what you were doing as well.
I know, yeah. He was just talking about something I wasn't interested in at the time.
And at this point, you were not concerned about speaking in public. You were you were being televised.
Yeah, I think I had like 7 cameras directed at me, and there was probably about 10 crew, BBC crew on the side, and I totally blanked them. So I was 100% focused on the dragons and not at all on the cameras. And I felt very confident and strong in myself.
And so the final outcome was
that I decided to go for Deborah, who offered the £72,000 for a 10% stake in the company. Yeah. And after I'd left the actual filming bit and had my lunch, I then got to meet Deborah for a quick chat. And she was really excited, and she gave me a hug, and she said, "Let's make some money.
Let's make some money out of raw chocolate."
And now I'm going to phone my husband and tell him I've just invested in a chocolate company.
Excellent.
And she was very excited.
So the overall experience for you as an entrepreneur, I mean, your company, the Raw Chocolate Company Limited, what does this mean for you going forward? That you've been on Dragon's Den, you've got Deborah on board.
Yeah, well, what it means for me and for the company is that there'll be new doors opening, and especially after the show is shown, imagine I would have loads and loads of new customers coming my way wanting to stock the products and to talk to me, interview me, write articles about the company. And I imagine there's going to be quite a big change and a burst of business, which is perfect because we've just moved premises to a new factory, which I was talking about at the show. It's just been finished, and we are now able to produce 3 times as much as we did now, or a little while ago. So we can now supply a lot higher numbers of products to stores. So when these new companies and shops come on board, we can say yes. And we've just launched into Holland and Barrett. I imagine they'll be on the shelves as this program is aired. So check your local Holland and Barrett.
And finally, your fears about speaking in public?
They are much smaller. I'm still a little bit.
You're a hard man to please. You go on primetime television, take on the Dragon's Den, win, and you've still got some doubts.
There's still some butterflies in my stomach. Yeah,
but that's probably a good thing.
It's a good thing.
On 97.5 FM and online, this is Marlow FM 97.5.
And welcome back to Marlow FM 97.5. This is a BizBuzz program with you until 3:30 this afternoon. And I was delighted to be able to play that interview with my friend Linus. He's quite a character, isn't he?
He certainly is. Yeah. Yes, what you were saying off air was interesting. I'm not sure they showed that interaction between him and Peter Jones.
No, there was a couple of interactions that he'd had where he said that they were kind of bargaining amongst themselves and make some offers between the dragons, and then normally when the dragons make an offer that the participant has challenges with, they go to the back of the room to kind of have a think about it. And in his case, he said he went back to the back of the room to allow them to actually have a conversation amongst themselves.
And I thought the cheekiest one was Peter Jones talking to him to justify himself, and Linus saying, "Well, I stopped listening because it was getting boring."
Yeah, so he is actually an interesting. He's part of the new entrepreneurs. I love the story about somebody who starts off with something that they enjoy, chocolate, and then turning it into a business. And his turnover is over £1 million. And that's just a very small. But he's been doing this for 9 years, by the way. So it's not an overnight success, but he's been working on that, and he's got other products that he's brought online as well.
And it sounds as if he's got the whole idea of the collaborative commons right down pretty well, where it's about need, not greed. take what I need rather than what I don't need. Because you said that he could have gone global, but he decided not to.
He didn't really want. I think what he wanted, not even the money. He wanted the expertise of Deborah's expertise, so that because he's not a businessman as such, but he has a wonderful entrepreneurial thing. I mean, when he produced it, he then went to the health food shops and says, "Look, I've got this lovely chocolate. How can I sell it to you?" And they said, "Well, we don't buy direct from people like the producer. We buy it from distributors." So he said, "Oh, well, who are they?" And they gave him a list of the names of the distributors, and then he contacted them and said, "Well, here's some lovely chocolate." And he said to them, "Look, what should I be charging you so that you can put a markup and charge the health food shops or the shops?" And they gave him a template of how to work that out.
Yep.
And so there's the collaborative effort between himself, his suppliers who supply him with this wonderful raw chocolate. And he had so when he was asked, I think by Peter, what's the difference between raw chocolate and any other, he said it would be the difference between taking an apple and putting it in the oven and baking it, as opposed to eating an apple that's fresh. So raw chocolate is raw chocolate. And they all agreed that the flavour and the taste was in somebody said it's the best chocolate I've ever eaten. So it is that collaboration between his suppliers, himself, and the distributors and the health food shops. And he's not actually. He's made over £1 million in turnover, but it isn't to do with greed. It's just to do with it evolved.
Yeah. But
Malcolm, you were going to...
Yeah, I came across some collaboration this morning. I was out shopping between a designer and a lady who runs a sweet shop. In fact, I bought two different presents.
Oh, we always like... listen to... Malcolm has brought us...
chocolate.
This is a bar of Love Marlow, Love Chocolate. And it is full of sights of Marlow. It's got the bridge, it's got the mill. Well, I live near there. It's got a train with the donkey on top. I'm not sure what that would be.
That's the Marlow donkey.
Oh, right. Yeah. And a yellow postbox. Who'd choose yellow?
That's gold.
It's gold.
That's the gold.
For our Olympian?
Yeah, our Olympian, yes.
And a church and rowers and all sorts of things.
Wow.
So I'll give you a piece in a moment. As I'm opening it, I'll just tell you about it, if I may, because it is a collaboration. It's a collaboration between Spittle Street Sweet Shop, Beehive Treats. Say that quickly. I saw her this morning. Lady who runs that. Knew a lady called Nicola in Marlow Bottom, and she said, design me a bar of chocolate for the first time that shows something about Marlow. So off went shop owner Lisa Arnold was speaking to Nicola. Nicola, who is in fact an illustrator. She's been commissioned by the Tate Gallery to produce artwork depicting London landmarks, and she said, okay, let's have something that looks a bit like Marlow. Here's a bar of chocolate, we'll wrap it up in this wrapper. And there's one gentleman who came in and said, I'll have 6 bars of that, please, for my friends in Australia. So here's the beginning of a bit of local tourism.
And what's the designer's name again?
The designer is called Nicola.
Nicola.
She said it was a proposal I couldn't resist. I had the same problem with chocolate, so she had to go design and chocolate together.
And
Nicola Metcalf of Marlow Bottom. There's some chocolate for you.
Thank you very much. We won't be able to eat that obviously until after the program, or the next time we play a piece of music. Actually, let's play that piece of music now, because it's Everyone's a Winner from, guess what?
Yum yum hot chocolate.
Hot chocolate. Everyone's a winner, and so our wish for the future is that when this, as it evolves, that we have actually become more aware. I think the more aware we become of these changes, the more we can participate in it and make the decisions based on what we're seeing. And these changes are actually happening as we speak. I enjoyed that interview with Linus, and you were actually you had some comment to make about a Dragon's Den that was happening locally in High Wycombe.
Absolutely.
Malcolm?
Yeah. Sorry, you're looking at it. Do I have chocolate in my mouth?
No.
No, that's fine. There's been a programme going on called Strive, and it's trying to get people who think they've got a good idea or fed up with their jobs and reckon they can earn more money or get more reward in other ways from their jobs to get professional guidance on how to go forward. And it came to a head last week with a sort of Dragon's Den with about a dozen companies. A panel of business people got together quite eminent business people who've done very well. And they did a Dragon's Den type presentation as if they were trying to get money or funding or support. And what they were seeking, of course, is, what do you think of my idea? How best should I go forward with it? Am I wasting my time? And there's some very interesting people in that. As I say, it's not a true Dragon's Den, but they described it as a Dragon's Den. There was, for example, one, now I might get the pronunciation wrong, Feng Shui?
Feng Shui, yeah,
Yep.
close enough.
But a lady in that, she wanted to become more commercial. She was sort of probably quite creative and didn't have that kind of marketing edge, or felt she didn't. But yes, she does, and she was advised on how best to go forward on that. And there's one or two other very interesting people as well. There's one lady who decided, who was a full-time mortgage advisor, and there's room for you here, Wisdom, if you decide to give up accountancy and money advice. And she's changed her career completely to set up business from her home, a bit like your friend, working in the 2 spare bedrooms, making special cakes for all occasions. And people like that. People who have made not just people leaving university, but people who are established in life 30, 40, 50, even more. And they went off with good ideas, confidence, and knowing that their ideas are likely to succeed. It's really interesting.
What I love about this, it comes back to our earlier conversation about the collaborative commons from Rifkin's book, is that people are not so much making. Previously, it was go out and make lots and lots of money and buy lots and lots of things and build lots and lots of houses, etc. Whereas now people are looking more. They're coming almost out of the corporate world, coming out of that world and doing things that they're passionate about, working together and collaboratively with other people. They're building up society. So they're building collateral in their society, in their connections with people, rather than collateral in banks.
Yeah, and
putting it in your savings. And
it's actually interesting that it's the younger generation who get this. They're the ones who've been brought up on Facebook and sharing files and media and songs. They get it already. So people like Christina Greedy we spoke to last week, that sort of generation, they're already doing it. We have to reinvent ourselves at our age, but it's normal for them.
And just reminding you, with Christine and the Greek tragedy, if you like, is that people who have saved up all of their, so they invested in the capitalist ideal, in the dream, and they've worked hard, saved money, put it in the bank with their pensions and also in their savings. And now they don't have access to it.
Yeah, Christina, I spoke to a couple of days ago, and she was saying that actually there's 3 things happening there. One is that people put money in pensions. Well, all of a sudden those pensions have disappeared because of the austerity measures being forced upon the Greek government by the EU. Next is when they put money in bank accounts. Well, like Malta, all of a sudden the bank accounts are frozen, and the government says, I'm just going to take that money away from you.
I mean, when I heard that, I really was shocked that you know that must be quite a devastating feeling. You think you've got this little nest egg that's going to tide you over, and suddenly you discover it's gone.
And what little you have left, then you have to use for your normal living costs, because all of a sudden there are no jobs.
Yeah. But I have a sense that there is something also, because of the way we are as humans, if we're allowed to, something new forms out of that, and that's where the collaborative commons comes in. The collaborative society is, rather than in the way it used to be in the times prior to the first revolution you were talking about, is I had 2 chickens and you had a sack of potatoes, and we worked out if I could have some of those potatoes and I'd give you one of those chickens. And so it could come back to that. I'm reminded of that time way back in after the Cuban crisis, after the Bay of Pigs, and when America shut off Cuba and stopped all of the other countries for trading with Cuba, and they had been supplied with everything from Russia, but then Russia fell into hard times itself, and it stopped supplying Cuba with goods. That the Cuban people, so with nothing, with no oil to run their cars or their tractors, organized thousands and thousands hundreds of thousands of bikes from China, and then started to grow their own vegetables and things. I understand that in Greece, for instance, they don't actually grow their own produce. They buy everything in. I heard a restaurateur saying that they don't have any fruit and vegetables growing in Greece that they can buy. They have to buy it from outside. So there's something I think will come from this circumstance in Greece, which will be part of this new collaborative society that's breaking away from the connection with the big
And that's exactly what Christina said to me 2 days ago. That is exactly what it's saying. The new younger generation are doing things together. There are some dreadful downsides in terms of the suicide rate going up amongst certain groups.
What? Sorry, say that again?
The suicide rate, especially among older men who are of the view that we are here to provide, and the big macho sort of man sort of thing, well, our house is our castle, we're here to provide for our family. Now I have no job, I can't provide. My savings have been taken by the bank, by the EU, and I can't have access to the rest of it. I have no reason to live, and I've failed. So the suicide rate is going up especially amongst older men. But younger kids are I say younger kids, but basically anyone younger than 40 is a kid to me. They're more pragmatic, and they're getting on with life and finding new ways of doing things.
And again, that's where the connections. If somebody is feeling isolated in any kind of society, then it's hard for them to come out of that. Whereas if you've got connections, you've got friends you can go and talk to and share things with.
And if you've got a mobile device on the internet.
And Facebook, and so that's where that comes into its own.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting, Jeremy Rifkin is a kind of self-publicist. He bigs it up, and he takes the technology,
he's
and
quite a famous professor, economic professor.
Yes, yeah, but not all of his predictions have been scientifically approved. It's not the technology that he's talking about, but the extrapolation that he takes from what he's saying, the interpretation he puts on it, is not necessarily proven.
Well, he's not making it up. He's talking to industry experts. He's heavily involved with people like Cisco, Siemens, and all of the big corporations who are asking him to come in and say, well, how do we change our corporations to survive? Because he's saying that 40% of our household name companies will have gone within 10 years because they won't be able to deal with the unfolding revolution. So he's not making it up. He's got quantifiable.
It's quantifiable, but it's not what I can. It's
experts in each of those different industries.
Yes, but the predictions that he's making that there will that the end it will be the end of work.
Well, I think we've been saying that for a long time, and obviously he when he talks about the zero marginal cost society, he does explain it doesn't mean zero.
He corrects that when people are saying that. He corrects it now.
Near marginal cost, zero margin, near zero. So still big implications there.
Can I just ask, we've got wisdom here in the studio.
We've got wisdom.
We've got wisdom. What a name.
The source,
wisdom
the oracle.
in nature. Zero marginal cost, zero interest rates. I mean, over 300 years with the Bank of England has sort of managed interest rates, it seems to me, in collaboration. I used that word again. It's averaged about 4.5%. And as you know, for the last 7 years, is it? 0.5%? Something, a long period of time. A friend of mine has got an investment to make. It's a compensation from something and doesn't need the money for a while. And it seems to me where the Bank of England is putting out thoughts that the interest rate's going up, that you take it seriously. And I think by January or February, the interest rate's going to go up to 0.75% and above over the next 6 months, 12 months after that. Should this person wait before committing to sort of medium to long-term investments, bonds and so on, or should you just go ahead? I mean, that's a sort of advice that's not freely available. Is there anything you'd sort of advise in this particular case?
I think if she's got a large amount of money, then certainly an IFA would be very happy to help her. It is true that Mike Carney has said that interest rates are like to rise, but he's also said they're only going to rise gradually. And if GDP continues to stagnate as it's expected to do so for the next few years, then there's every argument that interest rates will be pegged at relatively low levels, which is obviously causing problems for pension funds. So my advice to her would be go and see an IFA and make sure the IFA
is
an independent financial advisor.
Okay.
Make sure that IFA does a financial plan for you. So it says, looks at your next 5, 10, 20 years and say, how much money do I need and when do I need it? And try and structure that investment around the time frames in that plan.
The trouble is there's not many IFAs left. I have one in Marlow who's been excellent over the years, but the banks obviously are not IFAs. They're not independent.
The banks are retail banks, and the word retail tells you something. They're out to sell your product. No disrespect to you banks out there. I wouldn't go to a bank for financial advice. Okay. They'll try and sell you something.
Right.
Well, gentlemen, that brings us to the end of this program, and I think I've enjoyed it because I was interested to find out what your thoughts were on this book. I think it's a very thought-provoking and a very worthwhile book. It's a book that raises awareness for me, and it brings into into perspective some of the things which I personally was taking for granted, and kind of seeing how they all network and connect up.
It would be great if in the next few shows we could just explore a little further and bring in an expert called Chris Pereira, who's actually working in the field of big data and artificial intelligence.
Excellent.
So actually he'll tell you about what are some of the things that are actually happening, and we'll give people ideas on how you can get involved.
Thank you. Malcolm?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit more about the book. There's a very good critique about it, which I read in the Financial Times, and generally it was very, very supportive.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you both very much. It's been fun, and thank you for listening. One more track to play, and this one I'd like to dedicate to two people. It's to Susie and Deborah, and this is 100,000 Angels. We talk about business angels coming in. The Dragon's Den are supposedly business angels, but this, I think, is a different kind of angel. So, Deborah and Susie, this one is for you.